It's Mardi Gras time. We're gonna wind this thing up here now. Mardi Gras in New Orleans is the best time. Yeah, Paco in. All right. Second line.
Culture and me.
It is a place where the truth should be carried.
The arts and music scene really shows what people are about.
Share what's going on here in York.
It makes you feel like a family.
Local art has a face that most people can relate to.
Our community up here that sticks together.
Art is art.
Great potential with great artists, poets, singers, writers, directors, filmmakers. It's fantastic.
Everyone has a story to tell.
That moment, you have to capture that moment and share it with the rest of the world.
Showing something that maybe is not been seen before.
Without art, what good is life?
I am art. I've been art ever since I was born.
It really adds a great deal to our community.
We don't really need art to exist, but you need art to live.
Culture in Maine is important, and I think playing out is important, and playing open mics and playing wherever you can play. It's all about us all checking in with each other.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cherie McFadden, a proud York City resident. I am a Philadelphia native. I am a co-creator of the Ree & Co Show, a new live sketch comedy show coming to York, PA. I'm also a mentor with Yaya Girls, which is a mentoring group for young women ages 5 to 16 from throughout York County. And a mom, a sister, a friend. I like to laugh, help people, teach people, inspire people, and just help them figure out how they can be yet amazing in spite of any odds that they may face or have faced. Today we'll be talking about Harriet Jacobs. Harriet Jacobs was born into slavery in Edenton, North Carolina in 1813. She learned to read and write from the woman of the house and even had children with a local man, but by 1835 her domestic situation had become unbearable, and Harriet managed to escape. She hid in the home of a slave owner in Edenton, then took refuge in a swamp before hiding in a crawl space above a shack in her grandmother's home, all the while staying close to keep an eye on her children who had been purchased by their father and sent to live with Harriet's grandmother. Harriet lived for 7 years in her grandmother's attic before escaping in 1842 to the north by boat to Philadelphia. She was taken in by anti-slavery friends from the Philadelphia Vigilant Committee, who helped her to get to New York in 1845 and reunite with her daughter, Louisa, who had been sent to New York, and her brother, John Jacobs, who had also escaped and was part of the anti-slavery movement. Harriet herself became part of the Anti-Slavery Society and helped support the Anti-Slavery Reading Room by speaking to audiences to educate people and to raise money until 1852, when a friend was finally able to legally purchase her freedom. It was then Harriet began to write her memoirs, first as letters to newspapers, then secretly at night as the book that would become Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. Harriet wrote openly about how slave woman has been abused by impossible power, relationships, and told of her struggle to free not only herself, but her children. After the Civil War started, Harriet's writing became more popular among abolitionists and even in Europe, encouraging the war as a fight against slavery. Throughout the Civil War, Harriet worked in Virginia and the Washington, D.C. area to help organize, feed, and shelter refugee slaves and to set up community-run schools. She also contributed to organizing the communities of African Americans and to the building of hospitals, churches, schools, and homes for newly freed slaves. After the Civil War, through writing, letters, and educational programs, Harriet advocated for fair wages for the newly freed workers and ran a school for newly freed children in the rural South. She spent the rest of her life reunited with her son and daughter, traveling through both the United States and Europe, working for the education of women and African Americans. Her headstone reads, "Patient in tribulation, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord." The fact that she fought tirelessly for women, not only African Americans, but for women, and the very last quote that's on her headstone, patient in tribulation, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. It speaks to me because that's what I am. Having experienced a lot of personal trials and trauma and tragedies, you have to be patient because you have to keep going regardless. So you can't grow weary in well-doing because you might be the only person that's doing what needs to be done well. And being fervent in spirit and just having a fervor to serve and having a passion to serve and to grow and help others selflessly, that's something that I really admire for not only Harriet, but for women and men anywhere who can do that, regardless of the outcome, regardless of what they may come up against, and regardless of the sacrifice. And obviously, most importantly, serving the Lord and the Most High God, because that's what we're called to do. We're called to serve. So.
My name is Michael Dowry. Born and raised in York, Pennsylvania. Left for a little while when my father was in the military, but been back since I was about 12 or 13. Graduated from York High, William Penn in 1996. Went on to Penn State, graduated in 2000 with a bachelor's degree in finance and a minor in African American studies. Went on to graduate studies starting at Temple University, but I finished at York College in 2012 with a master's in business administration. Held various jobs throughout my professional career. Owned my own business, Dow Tax Service, out on West Market Street. I sold that practice in 2008, and looking forward to getting back into public accounting at some time in the future. Try to be involved in the community. I was one of the founding members of the York Bears Little League football team. We're at about 150 kids in the football program and another 20 or 30 young ladies in the cheerleading program. All right, the story of William C. Goodridge begins in Maryland. He was most likely born in 1806. His mother and grandmother were slaves owned by Charles Carroll, a Maryland plantation owner who was one of the original signers of the Declaration of Independence. The identity of William's white father is not known. There has been speculation that William's father was a Carroll, but others have said that the sale of William's mother to a prominent physician in Baltimore suggests that his father may have been the doctor. Unfortunately, not very much is known about Goodridge's early years. We do know that at an early age, the Baltimore physician apprenticed him to Reverend William Dunn in York, Pennsylvania. Goodridge learned the trade of a tanner, and he received some schooling plus food and shelter. It was agreed that the apprenticeship would end and he would be granted his freedom, a change of clothing, and a Bible on his 21st birthday. But at the age of 16, William was granted his freedom. Goodridge is said to have left York around 1822, and he learned the barber trade, possibly in Marietta. He returned to York between 1823 and 1825 and opened a barber shop on Center Square, known today as Continental Square. Historically, many free blacks became barbers. It is also known that their clientele was very diverse, and so successful, barbers like Goodridge were able to interact with successful white citizens. It is known that Goodridge conducted real estate transactions and ventured into retail, selling handmade candies, wooden toys, various fruits, jewelries, watches, and a wide variety of other items. He was a hustler. Goodridge is also credited with introducing the sale of daily newspapers in York. On the third floor of the Goodridge building in Center Square, Goodridge concealed Osborne Perry Anderson following his participation with John Brown in the 1859 insurrection at Harper's Ferry. William C. Goodridge died an accomplished man. He and his wife, Evelina, raised a successful family, and he was known as one of the most prominent black men of his generation. Despite the prominent role that William Goodridge played in the Underground Railroad, his accomplishments have not been widely known in Pennsylvania and Minnesota, where he later died. Once family members left the state, the location of his grave was forgotten. of a personal nature, my family, the Dowry name is from Maryland and freed along the same lines of his past in that sense. So I feel a personal connection there. And as I've learned more about my family and our history, I think I can relate in that sense. But beyond that, I wouldn't dare compare the trials and tribulations of my life to that of slavery. If where he was able to accomplish all that he did, considering the circumstances and the times, then I really have no excuse.
I was really interested in the symbolism in art and why that the symbolism in art history and in fine art is the same as what that client will come in and draw from me. You know, the moon being the symbol of the mother and the sun being the symbol of the father. And I was fascinated with art history. And it was that brought me to it. Because I was like, wait a minute, there's got to be something else here. Like, how can I get a career where I look at art and I can analyze it? And art history, I don't know. I don't know. But I found an article about this woman who was working with psychiatric patients and using art. And I'm like, I want to go study with her. And she was in Philadelphia. And her name is Dr. Myra Levick. And I got into the program where she was teaching at Hahnemann Hospital. And I was like, wow, this is where I want to be. And I'm getting goosebumps just telling the story because I live it every day. Like, this is what I love talking about. I love art therapy. Well, adult or kids, I have a series of about 15 drawings that I ask them to do. And these 15 drawings are kind of just like a standard evaluation session. I don't have a whole lot of paperwork. I get to know people through their drawings. So in the beginning, and it takes about 3 sessions, I will gather these 15 drawings. We'll be looking at the drawings together and talking about them those first 3 sessions. And after those sessions are over, we'll lay them all out and look at them, and together we'll kind of figure out what's going on in the drawings. I'll say, well, what do you think of this? Or why do you think you didn't put hands on that figure? Or why doesn't that figure have feet? Or why did you place this figure next to it? And we'll just explore. But the drawings are my roadmap in terms of what they come in and tell me they need to work at versus what's really in the drawings. Because what's in the drawings is really pure. It's not covered up. You can't cover it up. So the drawings are my roadmap. That's what I start with every client. And then we go from there. So if there's underlying anger in the drawings and the client comes in and says, no, I'm not angry at my mother, I can go, yeah, you are. I can tell in the way that you're drawing, you know, and sometimes it doesn't really take an art therapist to figure out in the drawings what's going on. It's pretty simple, but yeah, and then we move on from there because we don't have to go through a month trying to figure out if she's angry with her mom. Yeah, you are. It's here. Art therapy goes a lot quicker than regular therapy because you get right to the issues. They're right there. And as, you know, as adults, we know what to say. We know what to say to people like, you know, we know our soundbite, we know our story, right? We have our soundbite. And so the art kind of kicks that to the curb and gives you a different avenue to really explore. It really does. 10 years ago, when she was 9 years old, she's 22 now. I started seeing her when she was 9 and she had Crohn's. And she had this chronic pain. And I made a guided imagery CD specifically for her based on, you know, teaching her to relax her body and like talking about, you know, the Crohn's and the things that we had talked about in therapy. And I kept thinking like, I think other people could benefit. I think I'm going to do this. And so Jeff did the music in the background for me, and it was awesome. My glitter jars I've been using for years with people. And I started out using them with my clients, my teenagers who were cutters. And also I use them with my littler clients who get angry. They're good for kids that get angry and don't know how to calm themselves down and self-soothe. So we work on them together. We pick the glitter colors. And I bet you I've made, I don't know, maybe 500, 1,000 of these over the years. I have it down to a science. And so with the littler kids, we use them as, calming. Well, they're called calming jars. And, you shake them when you get angry. You run into your room and you shake them. And then I teach them breathing techniques. And we also use little cards that I attach to them for my clients, and with things we've talked about in the session. How to calm yourself down, what you think about, how do you visualize things. And then they use the breathing technique until all the glitter falls. And normally by that time they've forgotten what they're angry at, or at least they worked it through enough. And the same with the cutter. And my teenagers and women, I have a few women who are cutters, and I say to them, I can't be there with you. I'm hoping my voice is in your head right before you think about cutting, but I can't be there. So we're going to make these jars together and talk about some of the things that you can use to self-soothe rather than cutting. But you're not allowed to cut until all the glitter falls. And then I can't control it, but you at least give yourself a moment to breathe, a moment to understand that it's a choice for you. Oh, you know what? I also use these with my clients that have trichomania, the pulling out. Works with those too. So the blocks, maybe I just never got over that urge to color or urge to build with little blocks, because I have a coloring book. But anyway, I was thinking about all of the words that I help my clients come up with when they need to kind of reframe things for themselves. So when they say something to me like, oh, I hate myself, I'm so stupid, what I said to, that person the other day and I'm feeling awful about it, or their self-esteem is very low, we talk about different words they can use. And these are the words that I've used with clients, and I thought, you know what, if there was a way that they could have these words and have them so that they can put it on a desk and kind of remind themselves of the things we've worked with in session. But it's done in such a way that you can put them in different orders and build with them. Traditionally, these little boxes are called grounding boxes, and therapists use them with people who are dealing with trauma and feel dissociative. So the theory behind the grounding box is that you fill it with things that ground you, and like with your 5 senses, like something that smells very calming, something that you can touch and pick up and ground yourself. Things that you can look at, like a picture of a loved one or a picture of a beautiful sunset or whatever. So yeah, this is mine, but the whole concept of a grounding box, therapists, at least art therapists, have been using for a long time with people with dissociative identity disorder and trauma. So I just kind of took it in a little bit of a different direction. But if you're not inclined to be an artist or a poet, and you don't utilize that part of your brain to access information about yourself, and somebody gives you that opportunity, it's really powerful. But living as an artist, you kind of just do it naturally. But my job is just to facilitate that to happen for other people. I think it's about bringing together a variety of artists that have kind of very different visions about creativity and what inspires them and what keeps them moving forward. You know, Rosa is social worker, art therapist, and yet her art is so powerful, and she's really been moving in a direction where more of the artist is coming out for her rather than the therapist. Myself, I am moving in the direction of trying to promote these therapeutic products that have come out of being inspired by my clients over the years, and I want them to be available to everyone and not just people who come and see me, because I think they have definitely therapeutic value for people that don't necessarily need to come to therapy. Terry is a high school teacher at West York, and she's been really exploring this encaustic technique, which is a really ancient, actually, technique, very old, but it's so exciting to see her kind of, you know, break out of that I'm an art teacher mold and kind of just explode with these beautiful encaustic paintings. Well, I'm on Etsy, Healing Art by Karen. I have a website called thedrawinganalyst.com. You can get them there. They have them at Collage. I'm on the fence because I always straddle the art world and the mental health world.
Hello, my name is Jamel Alexander. I serve on the National Council of Young Leaders. I was blessed to do 12 years of direct service program, Youth Bill AmeriCorps at Chris's Addicts. I am a community organizer within the city of York, and I also serve on the General Authority Board for the city. I'm going to be introducing to you all today the poet Maya Angelou. Born Marguerite Anna Johnson, Maya Angelou had a difficult childhood. Her parents split up when she was very young, and she and her older brother, Bailey, were sent to live with their grandmother in Stamps, Arkansas. As an African American, Angelou experienced firsthand racial prejudices and discrimination in Arkansas. She also suffered at the hands of a family associate around the age of 7. During a visit with her mother, Angelou was assaulted by her mother's boyfriend. Then, as vengeance for the assault, Angelou's uncle killed the boyfriend. So traumatized by the experience, Angelou stopped talking. She returned to Arkansas and spent years as a virtual mute, believing that her speaking out had caused the death of another human being. It was during this time, though, that Maya began to read, memorize poetry, history, and classical literature, and began to understand how important it is to have the way to express yourself. After giving birth to a son at only 16, Maya won a scholarship to study dance and acting while working on a number of jobs to support herself and her son at the time. She was even the first black female cable car conductor. With hard work, by the mid-1950s, Maya Angelou's career as a performer began to take off, and she landed roles off Broadway and released a musical album, but she was a writer and a community activist at heart. Maya lived in Egypt and then in Guyana, working as an editor and a freelance writer. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings made literary history as the first nonfiction bestseller by an African-American woman. She also became the first African-American woman to have her screenplay produced and went on to earn a Tony Award and an Emmy Award nomination, among other several honors. She also published several collections of poetry, including Just Give Me a Cool Drink of Water Before I Die, which was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. Maya won a Grammy Award for the recording of the poem she recited for President Bill Clinton's inaugural ceremony, and in 1995 was lauded for remaining on the New York Times paperback nonfiction bestseller list for 2 years, the longest running record in the chart's history. Believing in always seeking new creative challenges, Maya Angelou directed her first movie in 1998, wrote a number of inspirational works and essays, and interested in health, even publishing cookbooks. President Barack Obama issued a statement by Maya Angelou when she passed away in 2014, calling her a brilliant writer, a fierce friend, and a truly phenomenal woman. Maya Angelou had the ability to remind us all we are all God's children, that no matter our history or our circumstances, we all have something to offer. Given the statistics today, even, just her having a child at 16, kind of stuck out to me as far as some of the young people, I don't condone it, but, teenage pregnancy is real. And her being 16 and continue to push past her circumstances, with her son, that was phenomenal. And even her abuse as a child, becoming mute, but then at the same time being the voice for everyone. So it's an honor to kind of speak about her, and thank you for the opportunity.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carol Hill Evans. I am a lifelong York City resident, born and raised here in the city of York, and I am currently the president of York City Council. It is my pleasure to introduce to some of you and introduce to others who don't know her, Miss Mae Jemison. Mae Jemison was born in Decatur, Alabama, on October 17, 1956. Her father was a maintenance supervisor, and her mother was an elementary school teacher. But Mae says that as a young girl growing up in Chicago, she always knew she would get into space in her childhood. She learned to make connections to science by studying nature. Mae wouldn't let anyone stop her from pursuing a career in science. In kindergarten, my teacher asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I told her a scientist. Mae says, she said, "Don't you mean a nurse?" Now, there's nothing wrong with being a nurse, but that's not what I wanted to be, Mae Jemison says. She was inspired by Martin Luther King Jr. Jemison thinks the civil rights movement was all about breaking down the barriers to human potential. Mae graduated from Chicago Morgan Park High School in 1973 and entered Stanford University at age 16, and graduated from Stanford in 1977 with a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering and a Bachelor of Arts in African and Afro-American Studies. Mae earned her Doctor of Medicine degree in 1981 from Cornell University, and during medical school traveled to Cuba, Kenya, and Thailand to provide medical care to people living there. And science wasn't her only talent. During her years at Cornell Medical College, Jemison took lessons in modern dance at the Alvin Ailey School and has choreographed and produced several shows of modern jazz and African dance. Mae also served as a Peace Corps medical officer from 1983 to 1985 in Liberia and Sierra Leone, and worked with the Center for Disease Control, helping with research for life-saving vaccines. Mae was accepted into NASA in 1987, and after a lifetime of believing, she finally became the first African-American woman in space in 1992. Mae Jemison is a professor at Cornell University, founder of her own company, the Jemison Group, that researches, markets, and develops science and technology for daily life, and founder of the Dorothy Jamison Foundation for Excellence that provides opportunities for children to study science. In 1999, she also founded Biosentient Corporation and has been working to use NASA technology to find cures for common disorders like anxiety and migraines. Mae Jemison uses her position to speak out on the gap in the quality of health care between the United States and the Third World, and has never stopped trying to convince women, girls, and African Americans that they can do and be anything they set their mind to. As May has said, Martin Luther King didn't just have a dream, he got things done. It speaks to the aspirations of not just our children in general, but our young African American females in particular, who have dreams of, yes, maybe one day becoming a princess, but the reality is they have a better chance of becoming a scientist than becoming a princess. And Mae Jemison is that example of what you can do when you set your mind to be more than just a princess.
My name is Jonathan Smith. I'm from York, Pennsylvania. I was born at York Hospital 1,000 years ago now. I wrote Finzel, A Psychotic Love Story. It's the second novel that I've written, along with a lot of poetry. The book's about a young man who's a little crazy and stuck in a mental ward in Appalachia. Somewhere it's kind of an amalgamation of Western Maryland and northern West Virginia, and it's the story of what happened to him in the last 3 days that he was alive, and just a strange trip down through his twisted mind. I actually wrote the book because I drive truck for a local company, and the route that I take was across 68 in Maryland and 79 in West Virginia, and down through the mountains and all that. And it just kind of struck me one day that something had to be going on besides just the highway passing me. So I thought maybe I'd write something about the people that live in the places that you don't see. So, and actually the name Finzel is from Finzel, Maryland. I passed the exit and turned on the dictation on my phone and started writing the book. Finzel, A Psychotic Love Story. The Maryland prison system has become cumbersome and overcrowded. I am a giant among these men. I am a giant among these earthly men. Finzel, are you listening to me? The old gray doctor looks at me with anger in his steely blue eyes. I don't like who he is anymore. His gray hair makes me want to rip the walls down in his cramped office. Of course, Dr. Thompson. Please continue. I tune him out immediately, wondering what will be for lunch today. It is Tuesday, and I think Tuesday is spaghetti day. If I am wrong about that, then I will have to punish someone for my being wrong. Finzel, you've been in our care for nearly 5 years. You need to tell us about that night so we were able to change a treatment plan. Wouldn't you like a change, Finzel? Maybe a new view out of your window, or relocation to a facility that has an outdoor recreation area? When was the last time you remember being outside? Yesterday, maybe. Oh, Finzel, why can't you stop mucking about and just live in our reality? I am aware that you simply want to be argumentative and be the problem. We want to make you the solution, Finzel. Can't you just work with us? Of course not. There would be less fun in that. Oh, Finzel, I hope you find a reason to stop this childishness very soon. You may go. Our time is up today. Orderly, take this man back to the common area. Got up from Dr. Thompson's fainting couch and looked at the orderly, who was shuffling across the floor in his white, non-slip tennis shoes and white scrubs. He was tall, taller than me. He had a lot of muscle hiding under the layers of fat he had accrued in his tenure of life. That's probably why they always had him escort me around. He could take me down if he needed to, but I never gave him reason. I am a giant among these men. Come on, Tiny. Why don't we go back to your room and meditate a bit? I do as he asks. The sound of my beige slippers and his white tennis shoes accompany us down the halls. I haven't said anything to him in the time that he has worked here. I don't want to. He isn't worth the effort of filling my lungs with a block of talk and expelling the buildup at him. Just not worth the effort. Puce, 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 light blue, puce again. I don't know who decided these colors would keep the animals calm, but they were wrong. Puce was a bad pick for me. It reminds me of the way that the blood smelled on my fingertips. The light blue reminds me of the dress. Well, I keep telling my wife I have the same disorder that Philip K. Dick had, where he would just sit and type and type and type. He was a big sci-fi author he passed away in 1986 or something like that. But he would just write endlessly, and that's the same problem I have, is that if I sit down and pick up a pen or start working on any of the 12 typewriters that I own, it just doesn't stop until my fingers say, all right, I'm done. It's not, my poetry is apolitical. It's also political at the same time. There's not really any specific theme to it. My style is just me. It's just my voice, and sometimes my voice is a little crazy and a little angry, and sometimes it's romantic, and I pull from the French romantics I learned about in college, and I can't really explain what there would be to it there is no overarching theme to all of it. I wrote another book called The Mansion, which was basically a long ode to a house that my wife and I were caretaking up in Wellsville. And it was just, scary ghost stories, things that happened to us, and just fictionalized it a little bit. So I think it's just as I get older, I think it's just an obsession with needing creativity, because I've finally fallen into my career where I'm happy, and it's just a repetitive, it's the same run every day, and I know what I'm doing, and just when I want to break out of that, I just write. Chapter 2. I remember him. I remember you. They gave me a comfortable bed. I like sitting in it. Laying in it can be a problem, but only on cold nights. My body doesn't like the cold. It doesn't get cold for too long in this place. I have the fear of God to keep me warm through West Virginia's short winters. Meditating is a secret code between the orderly and I. Or maybe just me. Can't be a secret if only one person knows it, though. Maybe it could be. I think it's the orderly's way of telling me to stay out of his way for a while. Maybe his night sucked at home and he has the itch to feel power, to feel like a giant among these men. Time does its best to stand still in this place. That may be the worst punishment of all. They put clocks on the wall every 10 feet, so no matter where you look, you're always aware of how little time has moved since you last got distracted and felt a need to look at the grimacing face. Nothing makes you crazier than feeling like there's no chance of moving forward. I guess the catatonics are the only folks in this place that have found an escape. They could be giants in their dreams. Not like me. I am a giant among these people. Whether secret code or not, I have found that meditation helps my overall mood through the arc of 0-100 back to 0-100. I don't meditate on the goofy things they tell us we should consider deeply. There are no layers to crime sometimes. Sometimes life is depthless. Some folks go bat crazy on drugs just to feel like they are in a lost childhood. Sometimes people drown their babies in a bathtub out of jealousy. I meditate about those dark thoughts. Do you? I don't think you do. Not one bit, honestly. I think some people are too afraid of their own thoughts sometimes. I think some people can't be honest with how they feel, and that is when all the bad things come out and play. I think God is a vengeful space wizard because we think he loves us, but all we do is fear him. It starts to shine when you give the light power. Wind-powered vehicles already exist in the high seas. I really do hope that it is Spaghetti Day. I don't like to punish the innocent for my mistakes. I think I'm right to do it. There's no innocence left in this place. Most of the times that I write, it'd be something just triggered me in real life. Like if I met somebody working a dock up in Scranton, and I thought about what that guy what that guy does in his free time, I write about that. It's just my personal experiences, I try to keep out of them because most of them are in the newspaper already. just in the police blotter. So it's not, I'm not trying to force my childhood onto anybody, because it was whatever it was. It was an average childhood, and sometimes it was terrible and sometimes it wasn't. But that's not what drives me. What drives me is just a constant curiosity of what people do. Yeah, because we see each other for 30 minutes at most. I just went down and saw some friends of mine for dinner. We were down there for 2 hours. Not going to see him again for another 2 weeks. What happened in between then? What happened in between last night and the next time I see him? Just curious, fanciful adventures that are pretty much just all made up. Chapter 3. I saw a bird on the highway once. It happened in my father's car. He had taken me to work at the mine just like every other day. We were done for the day and I felt small. My lungs burned from the pack of Chesterfields I had smoked throughout my shift, and the pearls of coal dust that were growing in the deep hidden parts of my lungs. The hard breaths made me feel small, but I felt like a giant when my pickaxe swung through the air down in the mine. The bird I saw was big. He was so black that he was close to deep purple. His feathers were flitting in the wind as he chased Father's pickup truck. I watched the bird through the window behind me. It almost looked as if his beak was upturned in a big smile. I didn't stay in school long enough to find out if birds could smile, so maybe he was. I would smile too if I could dart around the sky like he was. The bench seat in the truck was thick canvas that was ripped in a lot of places. The springs in the seat squealed whenever we went over the bumps. Bumps made Father's beer spill sometimes. We hit a bump that sent his beer flying off the dash and into my lap. "What have I told you about stealing my beer, boy?" I looked at him with an inkling of fear in my eye. "You told me to buy my own." "That's funny, boy. Did you pay for that beer soaked in your drawers right there?" He pointed a coal-covered finger at me and smirked. "I know what the Bible says the devil looks like, but I think that pointy horn and pitchfork is just to scare you into thinking monsters are real. The Bible came out long before my father was born, which makes me think God didn't think too far ahead." "No, but I didn't take it." "Well, I can't drink it, so that means it was stolen away from me, right?" I knew it was coming. His tone was a cruel one. I knew he would make me feel small next to him. I knew he would make me feel tinier than the worm the bird flying behind us had for breakfast. "I guess you could if you wring my pants out before they dry." "Oh, you got a sass mouth, huh?" Anger doesn't feel so important from the lips of a broken man. I didn't mean nothing by it. "You did, boy. You meant you wanted me to take your pants off and suck my stolen beer out of them, even though you gone and stole the beer. You want me to work for what was already mine. Maybe even suck my beer out of your underwear like some idiot, huh, boy? No, 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 no!" I remember that wasn't the first time I cried. I was 14 already. Must have cried 1,000 times over my devil's anger. I looked out the corner of my eye for that raven, but he wasn't in sight anymore. I wish I was flying with him. Somewhere. Anywhere. "You just wait. You got a 5-mile ride to think about what I'm going to do to you when we get home. You'll go and learn what happens when you steal my beers and backsass me." 5 miles back to our trailer. 5 miles through Lewis County back roads to the old dirt road where we made camp with a few mining families. The time was moving backwards when I thought of his hand crashing into me. Cab stank of beer now, and I'm not sure how much of the wet in my pants was from me. Close your eyes. You aren't there anyway. I will be down at the one and only York Emporium on March 6th at 7 p.m. reading from the book. I'll be reading from Finzel, A Psychotic Love Story, which will be then between the now and the 30 days that happens. I'm going to have to figure that out because it's just runs from beginning to end. It's, if I skip some stuff in the middle, it's not going to be fun because I'm skipping stuff that built towards the end. But we'll figure that out. Hey, if I have the time, I might just read the whole thing to you and leave out the ending, so you have to buy my book. But we'll be down there. We're just going to read. I'm going to read some of that. If I have the time, I'm going to read out of a previous poetic short stories that I did. I'm going to read a piece out of that and just going to come down and have some fun, drink some coffee, and talk it out.
My name is Christine Lincoln, and I am the Poet Laureate of York. I am an artist activist. I use my writing to make a difference in the community. I'm connected with domestic violence shelters and the CPC, where I want to run a women's group, a women's writing group. And my goal and mission in life is to give as many people as possible a voice through the written word. So I have to tell everyone about Zora Neale Hurston. Born on January 7th, 1891, in Notasulga, Alabama, writer Zora Neale Hurston created several acclaimed works of fiction, including the novel Their Eyes Are Watching God. She was also an outstanding folklorist and anthropologist who worked to record the stories and tales of many cultures, including her own African American heritage. Zora was the daughter of 2 former slaves and grew up living with an assortment of family members for the next few years. To support herself and finance her efforts to get an education, Hurston worked a variety of jobs while still studying Spanish, English, and Greek. In 1920, she earned an associate degree from Howard University. Living in Harlem in the 1920s, Hurston befriended the likes of Langston Hughes and Countee Cullen. Zora also landed a scholarship to Barnard College, where she studied anthropology and African American folktales. She wrote several plays, short stories, and novels while studying everything from local voodoo practices in Haiti to family culture in Jamaica. In 1934, she also established a school of dramatic arts based on pure African American expression at Bethune-Cookman University. Zora struggled financially and personally during the end of her life. She was often misunderstood or criticized for the racially charged history in her books, for the dialects her realistic characters used, or for her political views. Zora was a fierce civil rights advocate who encouraged African Americans not to depend on the government and who encouraged independence for both women and people of color. No matter what public opinion voice, Zora had a unique voice that was always her own, and it was a voice that has influenced some of the greatest modern writers of color in the century. I know for a fact that were it not for Zora Neale Hurston coming before me, I would never have been able to write my book, Sap Rising, which dwells heavily into dialect and the African American culture in a small Black community. And so she gave me the freedom to have my voice. And I want to say thank you, Zora Neale Hurston, for being brave and fierce.
My name is Harold Myers. I'm a senior supervisor at Harley-Davidson. I've lived in the New York community for the last 35 years. I moved to this great city to attend college back in the early 70s. Currently, I'm one of the executive committee members of the York County Black Golfers Association, which is an organization that does a lot of charitable work within the community, working especially with our youth, introducing them to the game of golf and also mentoring them in being good community stewards. I'll be introducing you today to John Matthew Shippen, who was one of the early golfers. John Matthew Shippen Jr. was the first African-American professional golfer and known as one of America's golf pioneers. Shippen achieved this distinction when he competed in the U.S. Open in 1896. John Shippen was born on December 5th, 1879 in Long Island, New York, to Eliza and John Shippen Sr., the fourth of 9 children. His father, John Sr., was a Presbyterian minister on the Shinnecock Indian Reservation in Southampton, New York. Shippen was introduced to golf in 1894 when a 12-hole golf course was built near the Indian Reservation in Shinnecock Hills. At the age of 16, Shippen worked full-time at the golf course as a caddy an instructor, and a repairman. He also worked with the maintenance crew. In 1896, at the age of 17, he entered the U.S. Open, scheduled to be played at Shinnecock Hills, along with one of his friends, Oscar Bunn, who was Native American. With their participation, they became the first professional golfers for both races. After hearing the news of African American and Native American golfers competing in the competition, many Scottish and English golfers informed Theodore Havemeyer, the president of the United States Golf Association, the USGA, that they would withdraw from the event. Some did, but most of them stayed. After the first day of the U.S. Open, Shippen was tied for first place, demonstrating his skill with a score of 78. He eventually won a $10 prize, taking home 5th place. Shippen competed in 5 other U.S. Open contests between 1897 and 1902. His best finish in these subsequent contests was 5th place in 1902. Shippen continued working at Shinnecock Hills even as he pursued a career as a professional golfer. By 1924, he retired from competition and began working at Shady Rest Golf Course in New Jersey. While at Shady Rest, Shippen designed and sold his own clubs marked with J.M. Shippen. Shippen was the only African-American golfer to compete in the U.S. Open until Teddy Rhodes entered the contest in 1948. While a professional golfer, he was barred from membership in the Professional Golfers Association, the PGA. In 2009, however, the PGA granted him posthumous membership. Well, it really highlights that the struggle's been going on for a long time. A lot of people know about Teddy Rhodes. Of course, a lot of people today know about Tiger Woods. And we still is a death of diversity on the PGA and the USGA tours. So to me, it's one of these things about us educating ourselves. I didn't know about Mr. Shippen, even though I'm a golfer and consider myself well-knowledged in golf and the minorities who have participated. So once again, it's one of those things where you're never too old to learn something. But that education is the key to unlock the shackles. So once again, I always tell folks, you get your education, know something about your history, and then you can change something about the future.
Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you really enjoyed the trip coming to and hanging out on the corner of Culture and Main. If you like what you see, please visit us at SaveYorkTV.com. We are only here by the grace of God, White Rose Community Television, and your donation. So if you'd like to see us keep going for another year, please join our capital fundraising campaign, become a donor, get some great free stuff, and be a part of what makes Culture in Maine continue, bringing culture to the county. We thank you so much, again, for enjoying the show, supporting these artists. And if you have ideas, if you'd like to get feedback, or if you'd like to know what's coming up on the show and get other information, check out all of our social media pages. Email us at cultureinmaine@gmail.com. Go to facebook.com/cultureinmaine. Follow us on Twitter at Culture in Maine, or go to WRCT.tv. Click on Show Profiles on Channel 18, and you can find everything Culture in Maine there, all in one spot. Be good to each other and be blessed.
I'm really excited about this. I love the atmosphere. I just want to know more about it.
I see it evolving, changing, growing. And I like it.
It's fleeting. Once it happens, once a song comes out, once a poem comes out, it'll never come out the same.
Some of the Culture in Maine is documenting what's going on in a way that will have that lasting staying power.
It just breeds healthy growth. It's a necessity. It's a necessity, yes.